We're back. We're back up here on the stage at the Heartland Cafe, where we broadcast live from the Heartland every Saturday morning from 9 to 10. You can get it anywhere in the world on WLUW.org, and if you're around town, you go to 88.7. It's Loyola University's community radio station. I am Michael James, the host for this morning's edition, and I want to thank the studio over there, Susan Dunn, for playing M. Ward. That was a wonderful tune. It got us all jacked up here, and we're just going to calm down here and do our next segment. A few weeks ago, I was at the Studs Terkel Memorial, and there was this tall guy with his collar sticking out of his coat, and he was running for Congress. His name is Tom Geoghagen, and I want to say good morning to you, Tom.
Michael, thank you. Good morning to you.
It's great to have you here. You know, I didn't know a lot about you. But over the course of the last month or so, I actually knew about you before I met you at Studs' event. And I'm sure I saw you in the Heartland over the years. I know you used to be David Orr's roommate back in the old days.
I lived down the street. I lived in the Heartland practically in the early 80s.
Well, I hope we got
I moved too far south, and I only come back for breakfast.
Well, we hope we can influence you still. You've gotten a lot of notoriety from the nation and other progressive groups. You've been a labor lawyer and an author for a number of years now, and most recently you've thrown your hat, so to speak, into the ring for to fill the vacancy of Rob Emanuel, who's gone off to do hopefully good work with our new president, and he left the seat in the 5th Congressional District vacant, and there has been a scurrying around of many people trying to get that spot. What possessed you to throw your hat in the ring?
I am a labor lawyer, and for years I've been fighting for pensions and health benefits for workers in plant closings and shutdowns. And this was my big chance I saw to make the case nationally for the things that I've been fighting for as a lawyer. I mean by that this is a terrible time economically. It's a frightening time. We're in the worst economic crisis we've been in half a century. But it's also a great time politically. There are things in play. And, Michael, I think when working people saw the $700 billion bailout plan that was proposed by the Bush administration has now been implemented by Congress, they realized the money is there. There are possibilities for big change in this country that for years they were told could never be made. Well, the bailout plan opened the spectrum of possibilities for what we can do in this country. And I realized that as a labor lawyer arguing for increased economic security, I could make my case now with an audience that was ready to hear it. And that's why I ran.
Well, we're glad you threw your hat in the ring. I've used that term 3 times. I hope I don't use it anymore.
You know, I hate to wear hats, and the skull cap that I have when in the winter doesn't go into a ring very well.
Now, you've raised a lot of stuff. I mean, let's just, before we even talk about the campaign, let's talk about not only the economic bailout, which appears to many people as a bailout of banks, but also the new economic stimulus. What's your take on, first the Bush initiatives and then Obama kind of getting, behind that a little bit and initiating a lot of new things? What's your sense of our shot at really getting out of this severe economic crisis?
For me, the first step is to stop throwing money at insolvent banks. And the problem with the Bush plan and the Obama plan, which has really taken it up, is that you're essentially spending all this taxpayer money and new money that's being printed by the Federal Reserve to keep the hyper-plutocratic elite, and Michael, I'm no soapbox demagogue, I want to tell you, but it is a hyper-plutocratic elite, from taking any hit at all from this meltdown that they themselves engineered. I mean, they violated their duty to their depositors, their stockholders, their public. They all ought to be sued for the reckless financial speculation they engaged in. The idea that we've got to spend $2.2 trillion to make sure that they aren't hurt at all, while we have little old ladies in this district who are trying to get by on their Social Security on $690 a month, and we have to go to the little old ladies and say, we think we have to lower you maybe to $685 or cut it off because we've got this crisis, because we're trying to make sure that the people who run Citibank and Bank America don't lose any of their bonuses. I mean, that's just, it's not just bad economics, it's immoral. And I'm running, at least initially, to wake people up that all this talk about transportation infrastructure that we're going to spend money on schools and all of that's fine. We're going to spend it this year, but 2 years, 3 years from now, we aren't going to spend any money on anything because the bills are going to come due for all of this. It's important to stop that bailout plan.
You're talking about the bank bailout or the stimulus plan?
I'm talking about the bank bailout.
And what would be the chances, whether you end up in Congress or not, what do you think would be the resolve of the good guys, we like to say these days, to actually do something constructive around the bank bailout?
Oh, I think it's easy to stop. And even though that the money has been authorized, I think it's easy to stop because it's going to stop under the weight of its own absurdity. The banks don't already think this isn't enough. Nobody knows how to price the bad assets. And already Alan Greenspan is talking about nationalizing the banks, which, by the way, tells you that nationalization of the banks is something that the banks now feel they have to pull the ripcord on because they're going to get money out of nationalization. They're worried about being left go and to die and put in receivership. That's what they're now afraid of.
Well, let's talk.
Well, I think the bailout can be stopped, and not only whether I'm elected or not, but more forcefully if I am elected, the bailout will be stopped.